Early edition of Golden Black Live. Our best show is always the 3 minutes before the show goes on, and we will not repeat anything that was said by Coach Gene Cady. He always behaves himself. Brian behaves himself. I try to.
Yeah.
But this is Golden Black Live, and it's Friday afternoon, so it's always a good time just to hang out. We've been talking about the fact that it's internet, that we could change our language, the way we talk, and maybe even having alcoholic beverages and maybe not break the FCC rules. We haven't gotten that far yet. It is an important next 48 hours, I would say, for Purdue basketball. Brian, you'll be making your way, as will Coach Gene Cady, up to Evanston and to watch the Boilermakers take on Northwestern. Doesn't get any bigger. I mean, Big Ten championships, as Coach Gene Cady knows, you always want to win them, and it will not be a walk in the park tomorrow, I don't think, for Purdue.
Right. Under normal circumstances, when you look at the matchup on paper, obviously Northwestern is in last place in the Big Ten. They're the worst offensive team in the league by a wide margin. They're not as good as they've been up there. But when you look at the way Purdue's played on the road, when they've been able to win, they've done so by the skin of their teeth in a lot of ways. Other times, some crunch time sort of failings have gotten them in big situations. You just want to see Purdue play well. You just want to see Purdue share the ball as much as anything. You want to see Purdue be engaged defensively. Everybody on the floor be engaged defensively. In the context of what they did at Minnesota the other day, Purdue needs to play better at the center position. They've been playing well all season long that way. That's a big part of the reason they are where they are. But the bigs have to play better than they did the other day. But as we've been talking about all year long, this team is so dependent on Carson Edwards. Everything he does affects this team.
Right.
And they just need him to play with a level head. They need him to share the ball. They need him to make good decisions. And if they do that, the matchup on paper would certainly seem tilted toward Purdue.
It's interesting just in the way that Carson played so well, obviously, against Illinois and Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State, that flurry and that 7-8 minute span was as good as I've ever seen, just in terms of what he could do offensively. Is there into this home road thing in terms of, and shooters would get to rhythm, and we'll ask the coach about this too, but hard to understand. I mean, I going back and watch the game a second time, which I know you did. He had some good looks there. He had some shots he shouldn't have taken. But what do you make of that? The fact that he really has struggled away from home. I mean, it's been pretty amazing from that standpoint.
Well, it's not
this year.
It's not out of character. This is what he's been this year.
Yeah.
I think in certain environments. Now, with that being said, he's had some really inefficient games at home too. I don't think necessarily that needs to be overlooked either. Purdue has built this efficient machine around a very inefficient player in a lot of ways this season, which is the ultimate compliment to what Purdue's been able to do from a team perspective this year. But that being said, obviously some of these games on the road, he's been highly inefficient, and when things have gone badly for him, he's made them worse by getting too aggressive at the ends of games. I call it tunnel vision. He just seems to have a singular focus on getting his, so to speak. And we've talked for years. It's the dichotomy that is Carson Edwards. You need him to be aggressive because aggressiveness has made him great.
No doubt.
But his aggressiveness can be his worst enemy. And when aggressiveness is his worst enemy, it's then Purdue's worst enemy because so much is invested in that one player on this particular team because the whole team is built around him. Purdue has built this great winning infrastructure around him where when he shares the ball, gets the ball moving, he has people around him who are maximizing possessions and they are making open shots. They are getting high percentage looks at the rim off screen and roll when he draws that second defender and holds on to that second defender. But when he doesn't use it, it doesn't matter. And there are situations where the ball sticks in his hands. As I mentioned before, he gets into that tunnel vision mode, and Purdue just really suffers because of it. This is the end of his junior year. 3 years now he has played starter-type minutes, a very prominent role for this team. Expecting him to change now is probably
pretty difficult,
a fool's endeavor here.
Sure.
So it's a matter of just kind of hoping he's just better in those situations than he has been at times. He's a great player. I mean, he's a great college basketball scorer. Purdue needs him to be a complete player. This is what we've said before the season, at the start of the season, in the middle of the season, and now here at the end of the season. They need him engaged defensively because he's better offensively when he's engaged defensively, and they're better defensively, obviously, when he's engaged defensively. But they just need him making good decisions. They need him sharing the ball. In the last 8.5 minutes of that game, Grady Eifert was standing in the corner like this, the whole time, never got the ball. This is a guy who was 3 of 4 in that game. He's now second in the Big Ten in Big Ten play in three-point shooting at 47.7%. He would have gotten a couple more open looks had the ball gotten to him. If he doesn't get open looks, he moves the ball gets reversed, Purdue gets a better shot out of it. They just need Carson Edwards making better decisions in these situations.
And that will be a storyline that we'll be watching, because obviously Carson Edwards is going to be a first-team All-Big Ten player and has done some amazing things at Purdue, and he is the high end. Do you agree with the feeling that still, just because you're not going to change the way he's played and his aggressiveness, and a lot of that as a coach I would think you want, but he's Purdue's ceiling and floor. I mean Purdue, if he plays great, Purdue can go a long way in not only the Big Ten tournament but the NCAA tournament, in your view.
Right, but unfortunately, and this is simple reality, this is one of the inconvenient truths of Purdue's season, the floor has been more evident at times than the ceiling.
Yeah.
You know, obviously after the Minnesota game, Matt Painter said that he can get in that mode and carry us at times. Well, the other side of that mode has been there probably more often than it's been the opposite of it. Again, Purdue just needs him to handle those situations the best he can. People are like, Matt Painter needs to sit him down and talk to him about this. I promise you, every conversation over the span of the last 3 years that could be had, every example that can be shown on video has been shown. And as I said before, expecting him to change into a different player at the end of his junior season in his third year probably isn't going to happen. Something we also need to mention here, Purdue didn't just lose this game because of Carson Edwards.
Absolutely.
Struggling down the stretch. You know, they didn't get the productivity from their centers they'd been getting. The bench was awful.
Yeah, not
Awful.
scoring at all. Yeah, it's so bad they couldn't
They
put him
missed
in the game
half their
themselves.
free
Yeah.
throws, and a lot more went into this loss than just the tunnel vision Carson Edwards was susceptible to down the stretch. But if Purdue handles a couple possessions down that stretch a little bit differently, you know, things might have turned out differently too. So you can focus on any number of things. Ryan Klein misses a free throw in the last couple seconds too that would have given Purdue a chance to tie it on the ensuing possession. The foul line really bit Purdue. That's out of character.
Yeah, that was
for
out of
Purdue.
character.
There were some things in this game that were out of character for Purdue, but the issue we've been talking about with Carson Edwards was not as out of character as some of those other things. This has been an ongoing sort of challenge.
You can't shoot under 50%. I don't know, and I haven't looked up the numbers or spent the time to do it, but you don't win many games against a hungry opponent like Minnesota and make less than 50% of your free throws on the road. That's a recipe for disaster as well. Senior day, though, that was another thing. You had an emotional part. You let Minnesota, and to Minnesota's credit, they played well and did what they had to do to win. But you're also going to run into that for a second time this week with Northwestern, and a senior class, certainly with Vic Law and Derek Pardon especially, guys that have had success and are proud of what they accomplished. It hasn't gone the way they expected the last 2 years in Evanston. But that's another thing that you have to overcome there, is that emotion of those guys' last appearance for Northwestern. Does that matter from your? Should that matter?
These guys were part of the solution at
Yeah.
Northwestern. These guys were part of getting them to that NCAA tournament this first year. There's a lot invested in these guys. These guys invested a lot in Northwestern. I'm sure it's going to be a very emotional day for them. That being said, they were also part of Northwestern regressing to its mean this year. You know, Derek Pardon and
Vic Law
are the two best players on a team that is going to finish in last place in the Big Ten if they lose today, 2 years after, you know, the program-defining moment that they've been waiting so long for in terms of getting the NCAA tournament. Their tipping point was last season. They needed to build on success last year, and that's a trap a lot of teams fall into when all of a sudden everyone's talking about you and you're sort of the darlings of
Chicago,
your environment.
in the
Well,
country.
I don't know if anybody's ever the darlings of Chicago unless you're the Cubs or
Yeah,
the
that's
Bears.
true. They're close, though.
That's sort of the inherent challenge they face just for
Yeah.
attention. But in their little sphere, they were celebrities because they got to the NCAA tournament, and they just didn't handle that very well, as they would admit now.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the beginning of the end of, or the beginning of them sort of slipping backward into where Northwestern has so often been.
Yeah. Grady Eifert, obviously, you know, we've well documented what he's meant. It's just been unbelievable, play after play, diving on loose ball. Would almost have been historic if had the last call gone Purdue's way and somehow Purdue had a chance to win that game. He just makes things happen. I don't know what. anything more to that story? I mean, in terms of what he brings, and everybody they still discount how much he should be playing. Some people do because of other guys that may have more inherent talent or look like they have more talent. Just describe your view on his role, and is there anything more really to add to what this guy's done for Purdue?
Well, I think earlier we were talking about Carson Edwards. I mentioned the winning infrastructure Purdue has put around him, and Eifert puts a face on that because he is out there. He was out there primarily this season to maximize possessions, to be a good ball mover, to generate possessions, get offensive rebounds, get steals. He's Purdue's best team defensive player, which often comes with experience, but also comes with effort, and obviously he's rich in both. I don't think anyone saw this season the sort of efficiency on the 3-point shooting that he's shown all year long. Again, he's shooting 48%, second in the Big Ten in Big Ten play behind only Brevin Pritzel. He's taken nothing but wide open shots all year, and that's a pretty good start when you want to be efficient offensively. I don't think he's taken a bad shot all year. I don't think he's even taken a questionable shot all year long. He's taken some halfway to a shot clock, but that's perfectly fine if it's a wide open rhythm three, as Painter would tell you. He has been so good all season long and sort of had this serendipity with the big moments where he's always there waiting for it when it shows up. And he's delivered every single time. The free throws at Wisconsin, obviously that was a great play by Carson Edwards to get him the ball off the ball screen. The plays at Nebraska were ridiculous. I mean, and improbable. Like that, improbable. That's how Purdue was getting by on the road 2 straight games, was they were making improbabilities at the end of games where they didn't play very well. But how many big threes has he made this year? How many game-sealing or momentum-killing or whatever it may be, momentum-generating, how many big, timely threes has he made this year? At least a half dozen through the course of the Big Ten season. And he's just, I don't know if there's a better compliment to a player than being ready when your opportunity comes. And obviously he was this year after, he had to wait his turn, obviously, like Ryan Klein did. But Grady Eifert was backing up Caleb Swanigan and Vincent Edwards, two great college players. And he was ready when he finally got his chance. And I think you can boil that down to the lower level, too, and say every time the opportunity comes in a game, he's ready. Yeah, and that's been an amazing thing to watch from that standpoint. The Northwestern gives you some opportunity inside. I mean, in terms of they're not extremely physical or not extremely big inside. How do you think Purdue attacks them tomorrow? And, I mean, is there anything different to, obviously you hope that if you're a Purdue fan, that Travion Williams gets back into the flow offensively, given the opportunity. What do you think Purdue tries to do inside? Well, I would expect a much better version of Matt Harms than we saw at Minnesota. He was playing at a first-team All-Big Ten level the back half of this Big Ten season. He's a huge part of the reason Purdue is where it is. I think it's reasonable to expect that the Minnesota game was kind of a blip, and he'll be back to his normal form in this one. Purdue's screen and roll game at Minnesota was just off. The passes were bad, the catches were worse. It just didn't work for some reason, and Purdue needs to get back to that. I think it's always good business to make other teams' best players have to defend, and I think if you can wear out their part and if you can get a foul or two on them, I know expecting that sort of thing on the road in the Big Ten is a fool's endeavor, but if they can make him work and they can just tax him a little bit, maybe that helps them. Perhaps that wears him down a little bit offensively because he's going to be such a big part of what they do, and maybe that eases off his intensity a little bit on the glass. Northwestern's not a great offensive rebounding team by nature, and that's one of Purdue's vulnerabilities at times this season when it's struggled on the road. So Purdue's just got to keep a body on him, make him work defensively, and just get back to what it's been doing well all season offensively. I don't know if the throw the ball inside to Travion Williams offense is still a thing right now because of where he is. I think the illness took a lot out of him. I think a long season, I think the stress of probably losing 50 pounds in 6 months and then playing at a very high level for a very long period of time probably has caught up with him to some extent. He's really struggling defensively, and I think the word's out in the Big Ten. Square him up, make him move his feet, make him make decisions quickly, exploit his inexperience and his conditioning, and that's paying off for opponents right now. And I just don't know what you do about it if you're Purdue, other than just survive when he's in there, or make people pay offensively. But he's not been terribly efficient offensively
Yeah,
either.
he needs to score inside somehow, and that's a kind of a. And he needs. It's been hard for him just because he's getting a lot of touch fouls called on him. It appears him. I mean, 4 fouls in 4 minutes or whatever
Yeah.
it was against Minnesota. Hard problem to solve. Hard to stay on the court when that's the issue. So, all right. Well, Brian, we'll be off to Evanston tomorrow, and then next week when our show is on, we'll be talking to Brian from Chicago, which is close to where Evanston is, and obviously Purdue will be playing the night version next Friday night. That's guaranteed. Whether they play, if they're the number 2 seed, if they beat Northwestern, they'll play at the early game Friday night. If they lose to Northwestern and are the 3 seed, then Purdue will play the late game on Friday night at the Big Ten tournament. So we'll take a 2-minute break, bring in Coach Gene Cady. I'm sure he'll have something to say about the Boilermakers' upcoming game and any other various topics that we'll get into. We'll look forward to doing that. We always do. And we'll take a 2-minute break and be back for segment 2 of Gold and Black Live.